Hello, welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the important issues appearing in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 18th May 2019. The news to be discussed has been presented on the screen, and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So, let's start today's discussion. The first news appears in the editorial section on page number 6. It talks about holding the center. Europe's mainstream parties must not take fright at perceived appeal of populism. Now, this editorial highlights about the parliamentary elections to be held in Europe from 23rd of May to 26th of May 2019. Now, this election to be held for the European Union will be a direct election. That is, all the adult citizens of European Union will vote for 751 members of the European Parliament. And these members, once elected to the European Parliament, will serve for a period of 5 years. So, like the elections in India, elections in Europe are also fought on different issues affecting common people as well as their lives. Italy's Deputy Prime Minister and the figurehead for the right in Europe, Matteo Salvini, along with different allies from Germany to Denmark, has launched the campaign of European Alliance of People and Nations. The people forming this alliance have called for tougher immigration rules for European Union, as well as they have supported this idea of Euroscepticism. Now, Euroscepticism means criticism of the European Union as well as European integration. Now, this topic in your prelims examination forms a part of current events of national and international importance, and in your mains it gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically under important international institutions, agencies, and forum and their structure and mandate. Now, we had mentioned about the concept of Euroscepticism. Now, Euroscepticism refers to criticism of European Union as well as criticism of European integration. So, Euroscepticism is basically defined as a person or a group of persons who is opposed to increasing the powers of the European Union. Now, Euroscepticism is moving towards mainstream political and popular culture in the entire Europe, and such political parties or a group of political parties are trying to gain more traction or trying to attract more people at local or regional level in European Union across different countries. Now, this popularity of Euroscepticism among political parties as well as among citizens of Europe threatens the legitimacy as well as popularity of the integration process of the European Union. So, in this aspect, the editorial has highlighted that only after the election we will see in which direction Europe moves after this particular election. Now, as you can see, there are three terms: European Parliament, European Council, as well as European Commission. Now, the European Parliament is an important forum for political debate and decision making at the European Union level. The members of European Parliament are elected directly by the voters in all member states to represent people's interest with regard to European Union lawmaking and also to ensure democratic functioning of other European Union institutions. Further, the European Parliament also decides on the European Union budget, and it also supervises work with respect to European Commission and other bodies of the European Union. Further, it also cooperates with other national parliaments of the European Union with respect to policies and directions in which the European Union is to take. Now, European Commission is an institution of the European Union and it is responsible for proposing, legislating, implementing decisions, upholding the European Union treaties, and also managing the day-to-day business of the European Union. Thus, we can say that the European Commission is the executive organ of the European Union and it promotes general interest of the European Union. Now, the European Council defines European Union's overall political direction as well as the priorities which it is going to take. Further, the European Council does not legislate and has no formal legislative power. it only acts in an advisory role. The European Council is a strategic body that provides the European Union with general political directions and priorities and also acts in a collective manner. Further, the European Council also sets European Union's policy agenda during their meetings and also identify issues of concerns and actions to be taken. Now, the European Council was established as an informal summit in 1975. However, the Council was formalized as an institution in the year 2009 by coming into effect the Lisbon Treaty. The members of European Council are heads of the state or governments of 28 European Union member states, the European Union Council President as well as President of the European Commission. So these are all with respect to European Council. Now, after understanding about European Parliament, European Council and European Commission, let us also understand certain basic facts with respect to European Union. Now, initially, the European Union was European Economic Community and this was established by Treaty of Rome in 1957. Further, the European Union got established by Maastricht Treaty or the Treaty of European Union in the year 1992. Then came the Treaty of Lisbon in 2009, which amended the Treaty on European Union as well as the treaty establishing European Community. And the Lisbon Treaty gave more power to European Parliament and also it formalized the European Council as an institution of the European Union. Thus, these can be said to be some of the important facts to be remembered for your upcoming prelims examination with respect to European Union. Thus, this editorial becomes extremely important as it highlights some of the important concepts such as the concept of Euroscepticism as well as about European Parliament, European Commission as well as the European Council. Thus, with this, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next news also appears on page number 6 in the editorial section. It says, External woes. Given the widening trade deficit, urgent measures are needed to boost exports. Now, this editorial mainly highlights about sharp slowdown in foreign trade, trade deficit as there is an increase of merchandise import with respect to merchandise export. And because of this, the trade deficit has widened to a 5-month high of $50.3 billion. So this particular editorial with respect to trade deficit becomes a part of economy in your prelims examination and in your mains gets covered under GS paper 3, especially issues related to Indian economy. Now this editorial mentions that despite 31% surge in shipment of petroleum products to overseas, there has been a decline or contraction in India's exports of goods, which is over 3%. Another concerns as highlighted in this editorial is that the Ministry of Commerce in its report has highlighted contraction in 16 of the 30 major products, and all these are a sign of concern. Now, as per the report of Ministry of Commerce, gems and jewelries, leather and leather products, textile and garments, and pharmaceuticals have observed contraction with respect to export. Now, this is a major concern for the economy because these sectors provide jobs and any lack of export impacts job abilities, and lack of job affects wages as well as consumption in the domestic economy. Now, another important aspect highlighted in this editorial is with respect to increase in merchandise import. So, a rise in merchandise import is primarily due to crude oil as well as gold. The editorial further mentions that excluding crude oil and gold, imports, however, has weakened or shrank by 2% last month. Now, an increase in merchandise import widens the trade deficit. And it is because of this increase in merchandise import, the trade deficit has widened to a 5-month high of $15.3 billion. Now, another important aspect to be noted is that widening trade deficit also widens or impacts the current account deficit. Now, the current account deficit for the whole year has been mandated at $48.7 billion. However, for the 9 months of fiscal year 2018-19, the current account deficit has already crossed the $48.7 billion mark and is now at $51.9 billion mark. So on this note, a rising trade deficit is definitely a sign of concern for the Indian economy. Now, this editorial also highlights certain cause of concerns with respect to external situations. It mentions about trade war going between US and China, rising military tensions in the West Asia, as well as increasing or rising protectionism among different countries of the world. As all these will severely impact India's ability to export in different parts of the world. And these external situations will also have an impact on current account deficit as well as trade deficit. So all these external factors also becomes challenging for the Indian economy. Thus, this editorial with respect to external woes becomes extremely important to understand from our examination perspective. Now, the facts and figures highlighted in this editorial with respect to imports and exports are not that important with respect to UPSC examination. However, from the prelims perspective, one should know about top commodities in India's trade basket as well as direction of trade. So, these are the top commodities in the descending order. First, crude oil, gold, petroleum products, coal, coke and briquettes, etc., pearl, precious stones and semi-precious stones. The top import takes place from China, USA, UAE, Saudi Arabia and Iraq. Now top export commodities in descending order is with respect to petroleum products, precious semi-precious stones, pharmaceutical drugs, gold and other precious metal jewelry as well as iron and steel. And top export destinations are USA, UAE, China, Hong Kong and Singapore. So these are some of the important top import commodities as well as top export commodities, and these can be remembered from your examination perspective. Thus this editorial on trade deficit becomes important from your prelims perspective. With this, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next article appears on page number 6. It says, charting a clear course in the Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific wing in the Ministry of External Affairs gives strategic coherence to India's Look East policy. Now this article highlights about the growing importance of Indo-Pacific region for India as well as for other countries. Now this topic on Indo-Pacific in your prelims examination forms a part of current events of international importance, and in your mains gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically under international relations. As you can see in this map, the red line signals Indo-Pacific region and the yellow line signals Asia-Pacific region. So, Indo-Pacific region stretches from the eastern coast of Africa to Oceania and America, in particular North America. Indo-Pacific region also includes within it the Pacific Island countries. Further, the South China Sea as well as Southeast Asia is considered as the geographical midpoint of Indo-Pacific and is considered the strategic focal point of Indo-Pacific region. Now the focus of Indo-Pacific region was also highlighted during the Shangri-La Dialogues of 2018 when the Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed his vision of Indo-Pacific, where he highlighted that the geography of Indo-Pacific stretched from eastern coast of Africa to Oceania, which also includes in its folds the Pacific Island countries. Thus, through the dialogue of our Prime Minister, we understand the importance of this particular region, that is the Indo-Pacific region. Now, the authors in this article highlights two important narratives. First, with respect to Indo-Pacific region, and the second, with respect to ASEAN. The article highlights that India's Act East policy remains the bedrock of national Indo-Pacific vision, and the centrality of ASEAN is embedded in the Indian narrative. Further, the article highlights that India have been active participants in various international forums such as IORA or Indian Ocean Rim Association, other ASEAN-led frameworks such as East Asia Summit, ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting Plus, ASEAN Regional Forum, BIMSTEC, as well as Mekong Ganga Economic Corridor. Further, in order to promote regional cooperation, India has also been convening the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium in which navies of the Indian Ocean region participate. Further, the article highlights that India has also boosted its engagement with different countries such as Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and even India has deepened its cooperation with Pacific Island countries. So, in this regard, through this forum of India Pacific Island Cooperation, India is stepping up its interaction with these Pacific Island countries. Further, India is also increasing its presence in Africa and have initiated the India Africa Forum Summits. So we understand that India is also an active participant in this entire Indo-Pacific region. Further, India views the entire Indo-Pacific region as a geographic and strategic expanse with 10 ASEAN countries connecting Indian and Pacific Oceans. The article also mentions that inclusiveness, openness, as well as ASEAN centrality lies at the heart of India's notion of Indo Pacific. So, in this backdrop, according to India, security in the region must be maintained through dialogue, common rules based order, freedom of navigation, uninterrupted commerce, as well as settlement of disputes as per international law. So, in order to achieve such a security, following must be respected and promoted. More connectivity initiatives by different countries of the region, respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, consultation, good governance, transparency, viability, and sustainability. Thus, these are the important aspects with respect to ensuring security as well as respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity in the Indo-Pacific regions. So we understand that there is a growing importance of the entire Indo-Pacific region, and this can also be sought through these different examples. First, the Ministry of External Affairs in April 2019 has set up a Indo-Pacific wing, and this has been done in light of India's growing interest within this particular region. Now, this setting up of Indo-Pacific region gives strategic coherence to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's view of Indo-Pacific vision as highlighted in the Shangri-La Dialogue of 2018. Further, setting up of Indo-Pacific wing will also help in integrating the IORA, that is Indian Ocean Rim Association, ASEAN region as well as Quad to the Indo-Pacific dynamic. Further, visualizing ASEAN region as part of Indo-Pacific also shows a evolution in region's thinking. And it also opens new possibilities for India's engagement with the Indo-Pacific region. Now, the growing importance of the Indo-Pacific region can also be understood from the fact that US, Japan, and Australia have included the term Indo-Pacific in their official policy statement, and this in a way also articulates their regional vision. Now, another important initiative which highlights growing importance of Indo-Pacific region is renaming of US Pacific Command as US Indo-Pacific Command, and also the legislation of Asia Reassurance Initiative Act in December 2018 by the United States. Further, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe unveiled the free and open Indo-Pacific concept in the year 2016. And even Australia released its foreign policy white paper in 2017, which details Australia's Indo-Pacific vision, which is centered around security, openness, as well as prosperity. So these are the important points which highlights the growing importance of Indo-Pacific region. However, there are certain challenges which still remains with respect to this particular region. The first challenge is with respect to growing footprint of China in the entire region. In this regard, even the Ministry of Defense and Indian Navy are also taking note of growing Chinese footprint in the Indo-Pacific region. Another challenge is to ensure cooperation with the newly constituted Indo-Pacific wing of Ministry of External Affairs with that of Ministry of Defense. Another challenge is with respect to integration of Quad initiatives, specifically with respect to larger Indo-Pacific approach. Now, another problem with respect to Quad is that India has limited its engagement with Quad since other members of Quad, that is USA, Japan, and Australia, are mainly focused upon South China Sea, whereas India's security interest lies in Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. So in this aspect, the objective of Quad for India needs to be defined appropriately. Another challenge is with respect to prioritization of commerce with that of political issues, as India needs to balance its approach specifically with respect to US and Japan on one side and with respect to China and Russia on the other hand. So in this aspect, prioritization of commerce over political issues remains another major challenge in this region. So in this aspect, India needs to preserve its long-term political and economic interest. So we understand that this topic on growing importance of Indo-Pacific region becomes a very important topic to understand from a mains perspective. On this note, this becomes your practice question for the day for your mains examination. It says highlight the steps which must be taken on behalf of Government of India to ensure stable, open, secure, inclusive and prosperous Indo-Pacific. I am sure after this discussion you will be able to attempt this particular question. With this, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next news appears on page number 11. The news reads, Yes Bank to claw Rana Kapoor's bonus. Now this particular news is with respect to a concept known as clawback option. This news reads that the private sector lender Yes Bank has decided to claw back the performance bonus of former managing director and chief executive officer Rana Kapoor. Now, clawback is a provision in which incentive based pay or a bonus is taken back from an employee by the company. Such a bonus or an incentive based pay is taken back by the company from an employee if such employee is found to be involved in gross negligence, misconduct, or corruption. Now, this topic of clawback option in your prelims paper becomes a part of Indian economy and your mains gets covered under GS paper 3. Now the clawback provisions are not found in Indian laws, either in corporate laws or in any other labor laws. However, the clawback options have been provided in United States under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. Thus, in February, the Reserve Bank of India had proposed clawback norms for whole-time directors, chief executives, as well as other top management staffs in any private or foreign banks. Now, clawback provisions are generally contractual in nature, that is, it is entered as a contract between the employer as well as the employee, where both the employer and the employee signs a contract which clearly highlights about the various grounds on which the company can invoke clawback provisions against the employee. Thus, we can say clawback provision is in contractual nature between the employer and the employee, where the contract highlights various grounds on which the company can invoke clawback option against the employee. Now recently, ICICI Bank initiated clawback provisions against Chanda Kochar and also recovered certain amount from the lady. So we can say that ICICI Bank has specific clawback provision in its compensation policy for its board members. So this policy states that in event of an inquiry determining gross negligence or integrity breach by any employee who are covered under this compensation policy with respect to clawback provision, such employees should return the previously paid variables as bonus back to the organization. Now the Sarbanes-Oxley Act 2002 of the United States allows the US SEC, that is Securities and Exchange Commission, to impose severe penalties on the CEO of a company or the chief financial officer of the company if the company's financial statements are inaccurate. However, such a provision has not been provided under Indian corporate laws or labor laws as already mentioned. Despite the fact that clawback options are not provided in any Indian laws, these clawback options have been a part of employment agreements in the banking and financial sector. So we understand that clawback options have been part of employment contracts in India, specifically in the banking and financial sector. And in this regard, even the RBI has supported the initiative to incorporate such clawback provisions in employment contracts. So, in this news analysis, you must understand about clawback provision and also the fact that Indian laws specifically do not provide for clawback provisions. Now, after our discussions, these forms your practice question for the day. What you can do is to take a pause of 5 seconds. Question number 1 says, consider the following statements about clawback provision. First, company can take back bonus from its employees in case of any legal inquiry against them. Yes, the statement is correct. Second, the clawback provision has been defined under the Indian Companies Act of 2013. No, the statement is incorrect as so far no Indian laws specifically mentions about clawback provision. So in this, the correct statement is one only. That is, the correct answer here is A. Moving on to question number 2, it says, which of the following countries comprises the Quad? Now we know Quad comprises of 4 countries, that is United States, Australia, Japan and India. So the correct answer would be 1, 2, 5 and 6. In this, the correct answer here is D, that is 1, 2, 5 and 6. Now these are your practice question number 3 and practice question number 4. What you can do is to take a pause of another 5 seconds. This question says, Indo-Pacific wing has been established within the Ministry of. The correct answer here is C, that is Ministry of External Affairs. Moving on to the 4th question. Now this question is about Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. Now Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar has been recently in news because of certain controversies during the rallies in West Bengal. So on this note, we must know certain basic facts with respect to Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. Now, certain important points about Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar has been provided in the PDF. So you can go through the PDF to know more about Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. Here, let's go through this question. First option, it says he was one of the prominent personalities of Bengal Renaissance. Yes, the statement is correct. Second, he received the title Vidyasagar from Sanskrit College, Calcutta. Yes, the statement is also correct. Third, he was a polymath and initiated path-breaking reform in traditional upper caste Hindu society. Yes, this statement is also correct. So in this, the correct answer is D, that is 1, 2 and 3. Now Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar also advocated widow remarriage by basing his argument entirely on reason and logic. And it was on the basis of his argument the Hindu Widows Remarriage Act of 1856 was passed. Hence, on this note, it becomes important to know about Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.